go.
All rise for the pledge, please. We could all rise for the pledge. Katie, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in the Ukraine, those suffering from a military conflict in the Middle East and worldwide. Thank you. And Diane, do we have anybody that would like? Yep, we'll do that in a moment. Do we have anybody that's there for comment? Okay. Walter, would you like to open for the town, for the Board of Finance?
Motion to resume the Board of Finance. Second. To order. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Council, motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay. So next, Dr. Parlato, thank you. Thank you, the Board of Ed Chair. And I see Board of Ed members, and I see some faculty and parents. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Katie, members of Town Council and the Board of Finance. My name is Leslie Sarich, I'm the Board Chair. Sitting next to me, I have Mr. Jeevan Novi, he's the Director of Fiscal Financial Services, and Dr. Parlato, the Superintendent of Schools. We are here tonight to present the 26-27 budget in the amount of $78 million. Sorry, I know, that would be nice, right? Everybody was clapping. Approved. $78,773,658. That is an increase of 3.2% over last year's. And we adopted it on January 21st, and it was unanimous. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Parlato.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I have some slides that I'll project, and members of the Board of Finance and Town Council have a copy, and we have distributed copies among the audience. So thank you for allowing us to present this evening. We'll begin with the Board of Education goals, and I'll tell you what those categories are. Of course, we have goals in student achievement, family and community engagement, budget development and fiscal management, district and school environment, and our district workforce. These goals guide our work and serve as the anchor for the decisions that we make. Of course, we begin our budget development process in October, where our schools and departments receive their templates. We look at our enrollment projections, since we have enrollment projections over a 10-year span. And then through November, we meet with each school and department. They submit their budgets. We do a preliminary rollover into Munis, which is the financial system. And then in January, the superintendent and the cabinet means the directors, decide what the proposed budget will be. We communicate those decisions. We create the budget books and deliver them. Additionally, we have some communication opportunities for the budget. So of course, the Board of Education holds hearings in January, and then of course their board adoption night. Also, we have school visits that we offer to Town Council, Board of Finance, and Board of Education members, so you can see the dates there for all 5 of our schools. And then one thing I've done for the last 3 years is offer a drop-in night at my office at Sarah Noble for Town Council and Board of Finance members to come whenever they like, if they have any questions. And if someone's not able to make it on drop-in night, certainly they can email me and they can stop by when we find a mutually agreed upon time. I'm going to begin tonight discussing the fixed costs for the 26-27 budget. Fixed costs are required items and elements that carry forward from one year into the next. And so you can see in this chart how we've broken it out. So we have contractual salary increases, and what that does is automatically provide a 2.45% increase to the budget for year over year. We have health benefit increases. that adds another 1.78% on top of the budget. Our bus contract, we're in year 4 of 5 with All-Star Transportation. You can see that adds another 0.26% increase year over year. We have our utilities and our refuse and recycling. You can see that. We have other insurance along with health insurance, such as life insurance, disability, workers' compensation, cyber insurance, and liability. So the total increase of the fixed costs, what I call the walking in the door number, because the fixed costs are not necessarily anything that I can change, would be a 4.68% increase year over year. It's important to note, if you look on the right-hand side, that 77.3% of our entire budget is made up of employee salaries and benefits. That's an important number to know. So going back to the bottom of the slide, walking in the door is a 4.68% increase over last year. So as Mrs. Sarich mentioned, our total superintendent's proposed and board adopted increase is a 3.20% increase over the 25-26 budget. So in the next slides that are coming up, I'll show you how we got from a 4.68% increase, which would have been our fixed costs, to how we got to a 3.20 increase. And you'll see that over the next several slides. The green box on the bottom shows you the last 3 years of budgets in terms of superintendent's proposed, board adopted, and Board of Finance adopted. So you can see that this year's percentage increase of 3.20 is the lowest superintendent's proposed and board adopted that we've had in a 4-year span. This chart shows our district reference group of D. And so the way the state divides us up in terms of school districts, they look at a variety of factors. They look at your median income, they look at your grand list, they look at the percentage of students who are learning English, they look at the percentage of households who have at least 1 bachelor's degree, and they create categories that go from A to I. So our district reference group is D, and you can see all the towns that are in Dirk D. The superintendent's proposed budget increase for 26-27 across our Dirk D is 6.17%. You can see where we are all the way to the left. You can see New Milford's there at 3.20%. And obviously that means that we're the lowest in our district reference group. And again, that means towns that are more similar to us than others might be. I think that's a very important chart for us to keep in mind as we go forward. I'll talk now about some additions and reductions that we made throughout the course of this budget. So looking at personnel, so this is part of the board adopted budget. We are reducing 5.0 certified staff in grades pre-K to 5, 3.0 certified staff in grades 6 through 12, a 0.4 nurse. 0.4, of course, means the amount of time that they work, not the part of their body. Yeah. So that's their hours that they work. And so we're also, board adopted has shown that we have a 1.5 certified staff increase in pre-K to 5. So if you look at the net reductions, it's 6.9. That's a salary reduction amount, as you can see, of $516,000 and a benefits reduction amount of $130,000. So as I go forward, I'll show you how we came to this number. And a lot of that has to do, of course, with enrollment over the years and using our enrollment projection to be able to make this decision. Oops. So I looked at the budgets that I've done in my time here in New Milford. And so the net reductions, meaning that there are some staff that I redeployed. So that's not a reduction because they're still in our salary line. But net reductions of actual people, actual positions from 2024-25 to 26-27 is 11 actual positions have been reduced. That's outside of redeployments and outside of additions. We have some other areas of savings, and we'll go for, as we go forward, I'll explain some of these in a little more depth. So we have out-of-district tuition. We're able to reduce that line by $195,000. So out-of-district tuition is for students who have some significant needs and cannot be educated within the New Milford Public Schools. And so we have to pay tuition to some specialized special ed schools for those students. So we have, some students are aging out of the population. So we educate students up to 22 years old. So now students are aging out. So that allows us some tuition savings. Also out of district transportation, because if they go to a specialized school, obviously we have to transport them there. The transportation is very, very expensive. So you can see we're able to reduce that line by $320,000. Our general busing, meaning our all-star transportation, we're able to reduce a bus next year. And so that's a savings of, as you see, $168,000. We're able to take some from our legal fees line now that we've completed the major contracts, particularly of the teachers and the administrators. So we know we have some room in the legal line, and we're able to reduce that. And we're able to reduce $59,000 out of the pension line. Some increases that we've had. So we had to add to our substitute line, and that's substitute teachers, substitute para educators, substitute secretaries. And that's based on the need that we know that we have. And looking at year over year, looking at the historical trend data, we realized we needed to increase the substitute line. Disability insurance is an increase in the premium. We have a yearly salary increase for our Director of Human Resources. We're looking to add that based upon the person's certification. Based upon the certifications the person might have, having extra in that salary line helps us to recruit a very qualified candidate. Our school security officers, which are different than our school resource officers, they are getting $1 extra per hour, so they'll make $31 an hour. And then we needed some literacy workbooks for Hill and Plain and Northville, and you can see the price of that. Those are all increases. So a question that's often asked is, what didn't make it into the budget? So what kind of ended up on the cutting room floor, so to speak? And we call those internal reductions. So you can see we have our grade 4 literacy curriculum materials. We're able to use some of our grant funding for that. And then you can see in number 2, there are some requested personnel and items that we just weren't able to include if we wanted to have a fiscally responsible budget to present to the community. And so I'm not going to read all of those to you, but you can see that it's personnel, including paraprofessionals, a dean of students, in-school suspension monitor, a director of curriculum for the central office, and you can see some of the materials there as well. So when you add all of those things up, including the curriculum materials, we are able to make internal reductions of almost $1 million. I think it's important to understand some of our district's needs. So I don't expect you to see this. There's a better snapshot in the next slide, but this is taking a look at what our State Department of Education calls our high needs supergroup. Those are students who are either learning English for the first time, students who receive free or reduced lunch, or students who have an IEP, which means they receive special education services. So you can take a look that this chart goes from 2014-15 all the way to 25-26. To make it easier to see, I took 3 points from that chart so that we can demonstrate it a little more clearly. So you can see in the first row, taking a look at free and reduced lunch students, New Milford Public Schools as a whole in 14-15 was 20.2%, and in the current year, 25-26, we're at 36.4% of students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch. Multilingual learners in 14-15, 2.7%. In 25-26, 9.3% of all New Milford Public Schools students. And then students who receive special education services in 14-15, 13.9%, 25-26, 18.8%. Of course, at the same time, you see that there's a decline in enrollment. However, this also demonstrates that while we have fewer students overall in our general population in the district, we have more students who have more needs. Often there are questions about out-of-district tuition, and so we provided you with some examples of that. And so currently, in this school year, there are 33 students who are placed out of district, versus in 24-25, there were 36. So what this chart shows are the examples of the tuition, if the student needs a paraprofessional in that out-of-district placement, the transportation costs, and then the overall cost. Now, you have to understand, when you place a student out of district, there is some state reimbursement that comes along with it, and you can see in that column what the estimated state reimbursement is. It's important to say estimated because we don't know exactly what that percentage is when we're creating our budget. So there's a lot of volatility there. Some years you get 72% reimbursement, 72% reimbursement from the state. Some years you get 65% reimbursement from the state. So that's a hard number to pin down. And so we budget it at 68%. And we've been pretty successful so far. You can see, however, in the blue column on the right-hand side, even though we get state reimbursement through what's called the excess cost grant, you can still see what the district's responsibility is and the impact on the budget line for that tuition and for that transportation. This is a very small sample of unfunded state mandates. I have a list from the superintendent's organization of hundreds of unfunded state and federal legislative mandates that we receive. And they're costly. So very, very few of them have no cost. So for example, this was legislatively required. Students have to be educated until the end of the school year when they reach 22 instead of on their 22nd birthday. So in some cases, you're educating a student for many more months following their 22nd birthday. So you can see the costs that are associated with that based upon that change in the law. Now, there wasn't any grant funding that came along with that. They said, okay, those students must be educated to the end of the school year when they turn 22. And you can see the cost there. We do provide and are required to provide special education services to private school students, specifically Faith Academy. And so we provide the hours worth of 0.33 of a teacher and 0.4 of a nurse. And so you can see the cost there. We have adopted a reading curriculum in grades K, 1, 2, and now it's going into 3 and 4. That was completely unfunded, and yet it was legislatively required that we implement that reading curriculum. We had to buy one of the ones on the list. You have to have a school medical advisor. That's required. And for years, it's taken a long time to implement this. There's been conversations about air quality, which are fair. However, they said 2 years ago, you have to do an evaluation of all your schools in your district. So we did that, cost $250,000. Then the next year they said, oh, you could do one school at a time, sorry guys. And so those are the way that mandates go, but that's just a small snapshot of literally hundreds of mandates for which we are responsible, and most of which have a pretty high price tag. I want to show you some of our foundational documents. And so these essentially create the direction for our school district as we move forward. So we have our ideas that we live by: focus, heart, collaboration, and creativity. We work by the instructional core in all of our classrooms. We have instructional keystones, 4 of them, which are instructional practices that we expect to see in all classrooms. All of our schools have a graphic around being on track in terms of their attendance, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their participation in the community. We're just implementing this now. We call it a portrait of a lifelong learner. And these are the skills that we'd like all students and all adults, to be honest with you, to be able to possess either as an employee of New Milford Public Schools or by the time they graduate in 12th grade. So we feel that these are skills and abilities that will serve students well, regardless of whatever job they take, regardless of whatever jobs don't exist yet. These, we think, are transferable skills and capabilities that students should have. This is, I don't expect you to read this on the screen, of course. This is our instructional improvement plan. And so you can see that we've adopted this growth metaphor. And so you can see our soil, our seeds, our seedlings, and our vegetables. And so that's honoring, of course, the agricultural history of New Milford. Also our school gardens that we have, and our wonderful gardens throughout the community, and our farms. So we selected that metaphor to show the growth of our district. And essentially what this one-page document does, instead of being like a 70-page strategic plan, that puts everything we're working on one page. And so that allows us to have a very nice summary of the direction of our district. The State Department of Education provides every school district in our state with an accountability index. So you can see on the left-hand side, those are all of the ways that they measure our growth. So I won't read all of those to you, but they are essentially looking at our performance in English language arts, math, science, looking at our growth in those things, making sure students who are learning English become proficient, making sure students are on track to graduate high school, making sure we don't have too much absenteeism, making sure students have access to the arts, are good in physical fitness, and have a plan for their career or college after high school. The one number that I highlighted for you is the overall performance index. So you can see from 22-23 to the present how we're making slow but steady gains. And so the state target is 85, it's not 100. And you can see how we've increased over time. And we're very proud of the fact that we know that steady growth and steady progress is sustainable progress that will last. This is the same information presented a different way. So year over year, if you look at every single one of the accountability indicators by which the State Department of Education measures our performance, on the left-hand side in green, New Milford Public Schools increased in 16 categories out of 22. That's a big deal, and that's great to see, and we're proud of that fact for sure. At the same time, you see that in 6 categories, year over year, we have decreased. And so all the work that I showed you in the previous slides, our instructional improvement plan, our instructional core, our on-track work, is meant to increase those scores. And so when I come to you again next year, and when I come to the Board of Education, there really should be 20 or 22 on the left-hand side, and only 2 or 3 on the right-hand side. That's our goal, and that's what we work for every day. Here are some additional highlights, and I don't expect you to see all the pictures, but I'll tell you what some of them are. So across all of our schools, now don't forget, we have 5 schools, plus we have the Litchfield Hills Transition Center. So we have students who are essentially pre-K 3 all the way to 22. That's in our school district. All of those students have leadership and service opportunities. We make sure of that because we know contributing to the community is one of the most important things that any child or any student can do. So on the left-hand side there, those are pictures of students doing their service work and doing their leadership work. This year we won the Silver Award. So we were on the AP Honor Roll for advanced placement testing, and that had to do with our number of exams taken. We had 71% of our students who took AP exams get a 3 or higher. 3 or higher generally gets you college credit. And we also had a high percentage of students scoring the very highest of 4 or 5. So that placed us on the Silver Honor Roll. Again, that's a big deal. We have 46% of all of our high school students are involved in athletics. That's a nice big program. And over 80% of our students in grades 6 through 12 are involved in at least one club, activity, or sport. And certainly we strive to increase that because we know how important those co-curricular activities are. And then on the right-hand side, you can see a little fellow there. He's doing his reading work. And the children on the bottom right are doing the same thing. So we've been recognized for our, what's called the science of reading work and our laboratory classrooms by the Connecticut State Department of Education. So we've had other schools come and visit us. Assistant Superintendent Ms. Hollander has presented at the state level to explain that what we're doing with our lab classrooms and our science of reading. Again, This slide is an awful lot of pride and demonstrates the hard work of our staff and every single person who works, certainly for New Milford Public Schools, and more importantly, the unbelievable support of our Board of Education. In sum, there's what would have been the fixed cost if I just came in and said, here are my fixed costs. I'm giving you a 4.68%. Instead, we're at a 3.20%. We worked very hard to get to that number. And you can see that the 3.20% is the lowest percentage that the board has presented to you in quite some time. I'll never not take my helicopter pictures from the last slide. So they're always going to be there. I can assure you of that.
Thank you,
That's it.
Dr. Parlato. Thank you, Chairwoman Sarich. A couple things before we move on to questions from council members and Board of Finance members. Some other things for those that are in the audience and those that are watching on TV and are new members of Board of Finance and the Town Council. There are other components that aren't in here that I think we should be cognizant about, and they're headwinds that we all face with the budget. First is, Dr. Parlato, could you let the public know what ECS is?
Sure. So ECS stands for Educational Cost Sharing. Educational Cost Sharing is a grant that's provided to every single school district in our state. And what that does is it provides money to communities for educational purposes. It has not been funded or increased in the last 10 years.
So, Olga, I know you have your computer. Can you look up ECS funding? How far back can we go? Could we go to 2017? Or do we have it? I'm just wondering. I don't know if Anthony may have it.
We can get it. We have it.
You got it?
Is the question the amount?
So what was the amount of ECS funding in 2017?
Well, we actually received 11,700,000 fiscal year 2017.
Okay. And in 2017, what was our total budget? Do we have that available anywhere? Sorry throwing that on you, Olga, but you're the money person, so.
Sorry.
Should be 101 million and change.
101 million, right?
Yes.
So, and we got 11 million. I'm just using these as rough numbers, right? So that's about 11%, right? Like it's a ratio, about 11% to our budget, right? So let's move to what the budget proposed if passed by our citizenry. What would our budget be today?
Today would have been, the upcoming year, 128 million.
Okay. So what would be 11% of 128 million? $14 million. So the differential is about $3 million delta, right? That's about right, around there. So just so the audience understands, the state of Connecticut is shorting a town of New Milford, just this year alone, $3 million bucks, comparative of what funding we got from the state in the year 2017. $3 million. Now, let's take a number last year, Murph, of 2 million. Let's even go lower, right? So 2 million delta difference. So there's 5 million. Let's go another 2 million, 7 million. The reason why I'm bringing this all up is the state of Connecticut, this is, as Dr. Parlato said, is a huge problem and headwind that we all must face, because they're shorting us as a community educational dollars that we could use for our budget. And that's a headwind that we must all face. One of the things that I suggest is we all talk to our legislators, the governor's office, and let them know that this is money that's much needed, that ultimately we as taxpayers, we have to fund it. And continuing to not give us the ratios that we deserve, even if we're going back then, right, Anthony? 11% now, you know, millions and millions of dollars. I'm just saying that so the public is aware that these are headwinds that we have to figure, because you have to provide the service, right? So providing the service, well, now you're going to need to front the cost. You're going to need to figure out how you're going to pay for it. And if the state isn't going to help us with our obligations, unfortunately, it falls on the town. Another thing too, headwinds-wise as well. Some other revenues that we did receive before, years ago, Sherman School. I believe at one point, right, Wendy, we got almost $1 million, right, back in the day? Almost $1 million.
Yeah.
Now I believe it's what, 300?
465.
465. And that's because population, the district,
Correct.
like all over, is waned, but that's some headwinds that we need to understand, that some of these things are out of our control when it comes to revenues. Dr. Parlato, I want to thank you. I sat in on some of both virtually and in person to not only the budget process that you went through, but also your strategic plan that you went through the Board of Education. And one thing I wanted to commend you on myself was that sometimes you have to give bad news, right? Sometimes you do, or challenging news, and how you go ahead and do that. Just as you did on your slide here, some things everyone needs to work on. So I commend you for that and coming up with a plan to do so. So a big thank you for that. Question I pose to you kind of right out of the gate, so to speak, is where do you see the difference in the student? And I'd asked you the same thing before at the Board of Ed, I believe it was the strategic plan meeting. What do you see as the difference of the student in, we'll take 2017 to the student in 2026?
I mean, I'll answer that in two ways. For certainly, there are still students with skill gaps from the hybrid learning and not being in school for some time because of the pandemic. And certainly those students are still cycling through the system. And so there's still some catching up of skills we have to do, particularly in reading and math. There's no question about that. I know that I've done a lot of reading about students' attention spans and why we're seeing students with shorter attention spans over time. And there's a ton of research, and I bet some of you have read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, right? And the impact of screen time on students' attention spans. Even small children of 2 or 3 years old on an iPad wires their brain for a certain kind of excitement and a certain amount of dopamine in their brains, right? So we're addressing learners whose brains are a little bit different, who have shorter attention spans. And so it's part of our work to build their stamina academically and making sure that they're able to sustain their learning over time. And it's not just quick hits of videos or video games that might be certainly fun to do, but don't necessarily increase always their math, literacy skills, their social learning. So I would say those are the two biggest areas.
I know one thing that I know you've been really honing in on is, you know, college is not for every student. And I know you're providing a lot of the resources for those that want to advance to higher learning. They could take college credits. And I know kind of one of the goals that you set is for those that may not want to go to college to get into the workforce. If you could kind of tell the Council, Board of Finance, kind of what those steps that you guys have taken to really hone in on that for our students.
Sure. So that you didn't put me up to putting the portrait of a lifelong learner up there, but a lot of it starts there, and making sure that these are qualities, characteristics, and skills that no matter what a student does, whatever their interest is, whatever career path they pursue, these are things that are going to assist them to be outstanding citizens of our community. So at beginning in grade 6, actually, we get students to start thinking about what are some various career options they might pursue, and then what courses might they take in order to bolster that and to get them ready for whatever they'd like to be interested in. So we're building that out as we speak. And so by next year, we'll have 4 fully built out what are called career pathways, particularly in business, healthcare, education, and the 4th one I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll think of it. But that is to get students. It doesn't mean, if you're in the education pathway, you have to go into education, but it allows you to explore an area of interest and allows you to take certain courses over your time, both in late middle school and in high school, that help prepare you to that end.
And also go to college, but you take college courses, saving them and parents money, because their college accredited for those that want to move on to secondary education.
Sure. So yeah, we have partnerships with UConn and WestConn particularly, and the beautiful thing about that is that either the credits are free through grant funding from the state, or they're very low cost. So that we have students at New Milford High School taking college courses for a total of $50, which is an unbelievable savings, especially if you have children in college like you and I do, and we know how much they are. So yes, we have numerous over 15 courses where students can gain college credit for a very low cost or free.
Let's open the floor. Katie, did you have the first question?
I just had one question on one of the slides. Let's see, you were talking about let me put my glasses on here. There was a list of various people that you said some people were going to be brought in, but then not, and some were let go. And you saved about $1 million on it. I can't remember the title that you had at the top, but it was a nice list of, you didn't read it all. I just was curious what the amount of people that were going to be new versus those that you decided to let go.
Do you mean this slide, maybe?
Nope, go back more. It was way back in the beginning. You had a left-hand list of things, and you didn't read them all. You said it wasn't worth that. Keep going.
What didn't make it in? Yeah.
Up, back. Okay, requested personnel and items not included.
So yeah, those were things that were requested from the principals.
Right, so, okay, and that's what I wondered. It said items not included. So there wasn't anything, this was all what some teacher, somebody wanted to do.
Sure, so when we
Okay.
meet with each school and department, they propose items to us,
Right,
and then we keep the running list of what's in and what's out.
right, okay, so, other than the fact that you use that to reduce, which is great, what sort of, and you can't get into the Myers here, but what impact is that gonna have on, for instance, the music teacher wanted supplies for a new course? Is that, in a scale of 1 to 3, does that 3 mean the kids can't do anything, or is it just something they don't get into as much?
So
That's
this
all.
would mean that we would add a music teacher, which would allow us to add additional programming.
Okay,
So the existing programming that we have at Scotticoke will maintain.
yeah,
It'll keep going.
just means you're not gonna get a new person.
A new person and new supplies that would go with the course they would teach.
Okay, so that's what got reduced?
Correct. Yep.
All right. And this is the first time you've ever done that, or you do that every year,
With these,
or? Yeah.
since I've been here, I've done that, yes.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Thanks.
Any questions? Walter?
Yeah. Dr. Pardo, on the high needs snapshot, in the multilingual,
Yep.
the large increase there percentage-wise, how's the dispersion through, K through 12? Is it concentrated in one area, or is it not just all
No,
the way
we
through?
we can get that and send that to the council and to the Board of Finance. I can tell you exactly how many students, multilingual students we have in each school, but it isn't concentrated in one place, no.
Okay, and the second question I have is not on this snapshot, but it's one of the things you're rated on is chronic absenteeism. Do you have a percentage of the students that are chronically absent or truant?
We do. I can get that for you in 1 second, yes.
Okay.
It's definitely down. It might be 16% overall, and it used to be, but don't quote me on that. Let me look. You think it's 14? I can get that quickly, and then someone can ask another question that I'll have.
From last year, or is it?
It's definitely down. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I'll get it.
Is it a steady reducing?
It is indeed, especially right after COVID. It was very high for every school district. Yes.
Yeah.
Mary Jane?
Presentation. I'm amazed and just incredible job that you all do. It's just, I'm so grateful to you. I just wanted to talk about how you're covering the mental health needs of the students, like the breakout of psychologists, social workers, LCSWs, throughout the district.
We can get that for your information.
Okay.
I can speak generally about that. So we're fortunate in New Milford Public Schools. We have school counselors using old term guidance counselors. We have them in all schools K-12.
Okay.
And very often in school districts, you don't see K-5 schools having school counselors the way we do. Certainly also we have psychologists, we have social workers across the schools. And don't forget, we also have our school-based health center. And so that's an opportunity for families if they think their child needs additional mental health support. That is a clinician that a person can sign up for an appointment with. That way the parent doesn't have to come, pick up the child, bring the child to a doctor's office, and then bring him back to school. It's found right into the school itself. But I'll get you the number of the breakout for each school.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions so far? Rolando?
Go ahead, Rolando.
First of all, thank you for your presentation, Dr. Morales. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. We know you guys do a great job. I have a couple questions. One about the bus transportation. You say you're into the 4th out of the 5 years, right?
The 4th of 5 years of the contract, correct.
And the bus transportation thing is something that you always see like on social media where people aren't happy, like parents aren't happy with things that go on with the bus company. Are you, thinking of holding them more responsible? Are we looking into to replace them, or are we gonna look to hold them more accountable for the future contract, or?
So I'll answer that in 2 ways. First, so just so you know, Mr. Giovanoni works in transportation as well, along with being Director of Fiscal Services. So particularly over the last 18 months, we worked very closely with All-Star Transportation to make sure that there were not as many late buses, to make sure that their level of service is what we would expect. I know that they had some staffing changes in their management at the bus yard. And honestly, we've seen tremendous improvements over the last year. The amount of late buses that would be an hour and a half late, this year we've had none. So the late buses that we have this year are only 15 minutes late. And sometimes it's unavoidable. There's traffic, or there might be an accident, or something in the road. And so we're very happy about that we've seen a vastly improved level of service for the bus.
So they're moving in the right direction.
Oh, indeed, yes. Now keep in mind, so because that's a contract of some size, right, it has to go out to, we have to post a request for proposals as we get closer to the end of the 5th year of the contract. So then we will see who will bid on New Milford bus service. And that allows us to, if we get more than one bid, then we can take a look at what vendors we get, and that allows us to make an informed choice. But that's a little bit down the road.
And another question I had, I personally come from a background of a vocational school, Tech. I saw at the high school, and I was very excited for that, some of the program, like the carpentry program that you have. And Mr. Menke was talking to us about adding a culinary program. And that's very exciting because there's a lot of, the children sometimes they're wondering what they're going to do. And these type of programs, that's what, I believe that's what we need more of. So do you have any other programs that you have in mind that you might want to implement in the future at the high school?
Well, one step at a time, as always, right? And so, first of all, we're very, very proud of our wood shop
Yeah.
and our woods curriculum. We have a new teacher in there, and so he's very experienced with creating projects for students. And so we're looking forward to the day where they can actually have a little business where they sell items that the students make.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great. We are indeed looking, we're at the very initial stages of looking at a culinary classroom for the high school. That will be tremendously exciting. So we're just at the point of getting architectural and engineering services to figure out what that might look like, and more importantly, how much it might cost. So that's where we are with the culinary classroom. And so then going forward, so the culinary classroom would take some time. Nothing happens quickly. And then in my mind, going forward, but it would be 5 years out, would be looking more carefully at manufacturing technology and how we might include that within the high school. But for right now, we're very proud of Woods, and we can't wait, hopefully, to have a culinary classroom in the next 2.5 or 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Carvano, for a wonderful presentation, and more importantly, for the wonderful school system that you're running. My kids and my stepkids have really enjoyed the school system and benefited from it. For the first 7 years that I was here, it seemed like we went through superintendent after superintendent after superintendent. They were so frustrated with the system of funding the operation that many of them fled. And I feel like we've been waiting for you, and we're thrilled to have you, and you're doing extraordinary work here. I disagree that the state is shorting us. Would I like to see the state get more money? Absolutely. But when you compare it with the percentage of our budget, we determine what our budget is. So, and the reality is the responsibility of educating our kids. These are our kids. That's our responsibility, just as it's our responsibility to provide the firemen and the police department and everything else that we budget for. And I would love to have more funding from the state, but if we got $0 from the state, it would still be our responsibility to give our students what we want. And I'm concerned that the amount that we're spending per student actually seems to be low in comparison with all the surrounding towns. I wonder if I came to this town purposefully knowing that it had an excellent school system and I was drawn to that. But if I saw that other towns in the surrounding area were investing more in their students, I might have been inclined to go somewhere else. And I just feel like the more we invest in our school system, the more we're investing in our town. And I get deeply concerned when we look with such strict scrutiny over how much we can reduce the budget by, when I would rather see us investing in the budget, because I think it would draw people to this town to enjoy the wonderful benefits of the school that you're running.
Thank you.
Every year I say I would love to see the Board of Education budget increased. I hate when it's ever been decreased, and I agree with you that it's very important. Our kids are our assets, and they're our future. I wanted to ask you some questions about the ECS. It's been flat funded, and many towns, obviously across the state of Connecticut, are experiencing the same problem. Do you have any thoughts about, and they've been talking about revamping it, do you have any thoughts about that? Anything we can pass on to our legislators about?
I mean, that's legislative action, to be honest with you, so that's,
I know
that's legislative action. They have to decide to increase it or not. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Revamping it.
We gotta be smarter.
Yeah, there's a formula that's involved,
That's what we gotta do.
and I know that they have people looking at the formula for how they decide the allocation per school district. But again, that's something that is determined at the legislature.
Right, yeah, I know that, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts on how they could revamp it that might make it a more equitable system.
There's some possible legislation in this new session that they have, that they're talking about. There's a big push from municipalities, also from public at large, to really fund it. And I do fundamentally disagree, Ari, with your comment, because we all pay state taxes. So we're paying those state taxes. They should be giving us more of our fair share for our education. And as we talked about before, if you just go by those 2017 to 2020, if you just took the delta of 11%, I just used that as a random number. If they just kept that delta at 11% as our budgets grow, that's millions of dollars that the district could use to fund things. And to me, I think what would be great is pay attention. I'll push it out once we get more information about when possibly they bring that bill up. And then we can all advocate for it as best we can. Obviously, as you had said, Mary Jane, it's up to the legislature.
Yeah.
But I think the more we all can be aware that there's opportunities to get additional revenue, that we're already paying for it, so might as well see if we can get it. Walter?
Well, there's another companion bill going through the legislature or being proposed on increasing special ed funding. It's separate from the ECS. So that's something else we should be keeping an eye on.
Brian?
Doctor, sorry. I wasn't going to ask it, I guess. Do you know what the average cost of educating a child is?
Oh, yeah.
I would have let you do that.
So does your question mean the per pupil expenditure? Are you asking that question?
Yes.
All right, so I can give you that in 1 second. All right, so this is 2025. That's the most recent?
Yep.
Do you have 2708? Yeah. $20,708 is the per pupil expenditure. So within our district reference group, I mentioned that before. So that puts us at 17th place within the 24 towns of our district reference group.
Because you talk after you, and I would.
I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Is that today,
Then I'll
or
go
is
in.
that if this budget passes?
No, that's right now. Yes.
You know, we talk about increasing budgets, which is wonderful. It's taxpayer dollars,
Indeed.
which pays for the cost of education. Right now, the Department of Education indicates that we're closing in on $1 trillion to educate children from K to 12. The average cost of teaching children throughout the United States last year was $17,700. New York City was $30,000. Now we spend all that money, but yet there are so many countries who surpass us in education. And I apologize, I do not mean you've done an excellent job, so just step aside. Singapore, South Korea, 99.5% of all their high school students go to 4-year colleges. Japan, Norway, Finland, the UK, all ahead of us, and I don't spend half of what we spend. 25% of children going into high school cannot do simple math. Universities still need courses in remedial reading. I'm looking at primarily New York, and why? Because I spent most of my life there. All the money they spend, they're up to $40 billion in the cost of education, yet they lost 22,000 students last year. And yet, private, parochial, and charter schools surpass public schools in education. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe in great raises for good teachers. I have 4 teachers in my family. My son has a doctorate, and he teaches advanced courses in bio and science in high school. He teaches in a college to students who are going to become nurses. My daughter, after 30 years in teaching history and economics, the last 11 years she was chair, not only of the middle school in which she taught, but of the high school in which she didn't teach. She was chair of the history department. Her husband, after 30 years teaching math, their daughter is in her 7th year of teaching. So I'm very proud of my family. But I also believe in 4 words that all my working career I lived with: goals, success, accountability, and merit. A lot of places that doesn't go because some people don't like those words. I congratulate you, Doctor, on what you're doing here. I was not going to raise a point at all until raising budgets came up. It comes a point where we have to watch how far we're raising budgets, because it's the taxpayer, and these are taxpayers. Taxpayer dollars is what they, government doesn't pay for anything. We pay for it. So if you want to keep raising budgets, just remember whose pocket it's coming out of. Be very careful how far those budgets go, and be careful where we raise that money. Again, I apologize, I didn't want to do that at all. Doctor, you've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Katie, well, actually, could it be Joe, because he hasn't done it first?
Joe,
Okay.
please speak.
Joe?
So, to illustrate your point, Brian, there's been a bunch of studies that the average college freshman coming in can't read properly. They're functionally illiterate. So that goes back to your point about TikTok.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
Reels and social media
Yep.
and stuff like that. And I wanted to defend your point on the ECS. It has not kept up with inflation. And since 2017, probably more than double inflation. So it should probably be more like, well, it's 11 million, so it should probably be more like 20 million at this point. But the real point I wanted to make, these were just things I added on to what I really wanted to say. Can you go back to the high needs students slide?
Sure. Let me think about where that is. It's this way.
There you go. How do we compare to the other schools in our district reference group in those categories?
Hold on for 1 second.
I'm curious, higher or lower, higher in some, lower in others. I don't know. I think a lot of people don't know.
If I can't get that in 2 seconds, we'll send it out, but
Okay.
I do want to, I'm not ignoring your point. I
No,
just
no,
want to
I
answer the
understand.
question about absenteeism first. So 21-22, the school year, we were at 22.9% of all students were chronically absent. That means they miss 10% or greater of the school year. So the school year is 181 days. They miss 18 days or more. That was 21-22. 22-23 down to 19.7%. 23-24 down to 17.2%. And 24-25 down to 14.7%. So we know we still have some work to do there, but we're definitely trending in the right direction. And yeah, it's good to see that we're down that much. Just so everyone knows, the state target is less than 5. You have to be 5 or lower to get the most number of points as part of your indicator. Let me see if I can get that for you quick. Joe. I don't have it right here, but I can get it.
Okay.
I could probably get it in 5 minutes if there's other questions.
Even if you can answer it later,
Yes.
that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Katie, then Ari?
So you just answered one of my first question was going to be about what the absentee amount was as it went through, but I would like to know what school would you say is the least amount and the most amount? So go by age for absentee. High school have more kids out all the time, chronic, or
It's kind of even. There's nothing that's surprising. There isn't one that jumps out.
Middle Plain, which has youngest children, right?
Yeah, sure. K2.
So they stay home and say, "Mom, I'm not going. I'm 6.
Or yeah,
I'm not going." Okay.
that might be one thing they say.
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot of other reasons I know that. Yeah. So another question is, the United Way does a lot of advocating now in Hartford. As a matter of fact, today I spent 2 hours on the phone, and we were listening to all the various things that are happening and not happening, and we're going to Hartford all the time. And a $28 billion budget, and they cut something that might be $11,000.
Yep.
I mean, that's like less than a gnat, and I don't get that. But my other question was, in the past years, I'm trying to think, might have been 15 years ago, I don't know, there was in the high school a program that was done by a teacher to, for daycare, to start to learn about what daycare was all about.
Tiny Tides Preschool.
So, do you still do that?
Indeed, we do. So that's part of the education pathway.
Okay. And so, in order for somebody to do that, to figure, you know, they kind of got a good taste of what it was like to do that whole thing, which of course we know we need. Do they have to do other programs, or is that a unit by itself?
So that's
You said it's
own-
part of the I know
Yeah.
I know about the pathways, but
Sure.
so is that part of a pathway that you must complete, or?
So that there are 2 courses. You take child development,
Yep.
so you get the theoretical basis of how children work. And then you take, if you'd like to, you take the Tiny Tides Preschool course.
So that's to get them ready for wanting to work in a daycare, or?
Any part of education.
Anything.
Yeah, there are
Okay.
plenty of students in there who are interested in elementary education or even secondary education, but they like working with kids.
Right, because that is, that time, and I think it would still be true today, there are, you know, students who look at that and think, wow, that'd be really nice, because when you're a student in a teenage, you know, sometimes you have an affinity, some, not always, affinity to younger kids, you say go away, but that I saw that with my own eyes, and I would never have believed it if, in my time, that people would say, oh yeah, I really want to learn how I can run a daycare, not. But, so, well, you know, it's a different year. But I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, and that's a pathway. Yeah, see, I am not able to keep up with the pathways. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask was about the question about the buses. I know that there are, we're the largest town, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I see buses that are the large buses, and I know the road they're going on, and they don't have very many kids in there. Is there a way with this particular company, when I was a kid, that, you know, they used a smaller vehicle just because there were 5 kids to pick up? So why have that big bus? And I guess it was a program where they paid the people to take the small, whatever it was, van. Can we do that with the company that does the busing now? Or are they totally in charge of how every student gets moved?
They decide the routes, and they decide how we don't tell them which buses to use. They have a certain number of small buses at their disposal.
But those buses are driven by their people. See, what used to happen was, on, say, the road I live on, so there were 10 families, 7 children. So somebody's aunt or uncle or whatever said, hey, you know, I got insurance on this vehicle. They'll fit. I'll bring them to school and pick them up. Became the driver. Is that possible to do today? Because I see buses go by with 2 and 3 kids.
So if people on the street want to do that, they can do that. That's not something we endorse.
No, I'm not saying you should endorse it, but does the bus company have any way to think about that? You know, they
so
have
they're
bus
following-
drivers.
the law says that we have to provide a seat on a bus for every child.
Yeah, but if there's only 3 children on the street, why are they taking, you know, why should we have to pay the bus driver in a huge bus using a lot of fuel? It can't be used someplace else, and we know when that happens, when a bus breaks down. It's nothing that I'm not saying you should take care of it, but I'm wondering about the bus company, because it seems to me like all the bus companies are sort of just the gods of the buses, and they don't allow you any liberty to do anything.
Yeah, I would say there's certainly a legislative angle there, which is to let school districts, let people opt out of busing. And the legislation doesn't allow that now, but there could be legislation that says, hey, I'm gonna opt my kid out of transportation for the whole year. That would allow us to change routes.
You see the number of people that come to school in cars,
I do.
and the
I
number
drive
of kids who
around all the
picked
time.
up in cars,
Yeah.
and I wonder how there's ever any lack of buses, because there's so many. So there must be something going on. I don't know, not that you want to do it now, but it's something that I think, people come and ask me this question all the time. Why do I see 4 kids in that bus? I said, well, I don't know, call the bus company. I don't really know, but.
So we have
that's
to
all.
offer a seat for each child, and so if the route has 30, 40
Yeah,
kids on it,
right, I get
then they
that.
assign the large bus to it, but then sometimes only 10 kids get on.
Well, mom's taking them, yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for everything you've done. I enjoyed the information here, and I think all the teachers here are pretty darn good.
Fantastic staff, really, lovely. May I answer the question about free and reduced lunch? Let's see, so we are 12th out of 24. So the state average of, and this is for 24, 25, it always lags a year. The state average, just so you know, is 44.8% of students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And so that puts us, in our district reference group, that puts us 12th out of 24.
Right.
Right in the middle, yep.
Any of the others, or you couldn't find those?
No, special ed would be different. So the state average for special ed identification is 17%, just so you know.
Okay.
And,
That's how you
yep,
multilingual.
that would take me, I would have to do a little research on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe you could get us that.
I will do
I
that.
would like to see that.
For sure, yeah, we could do that.
Art?
Yeah, so getting back to the educational cost sharing contribution from the state, the real reason why they can't do it as a percentage of the town's budget is because that would reward the most affluent towns and not provide enough funding for the less affluent towns. And the goal would be to make sure that all the children in the state get educated adequately. So it can't be a percentage of the town's budget, which would be totally under our control based on the revenue that we generate here, which is going to be different from other towns. But getting back to accountability for the schools, I too agree in accountability for the schools, and I think the schools are doing a fantastic job on a very, very razor-tight budget. And I think that should be rewarded, and I think investing in the school system is an investment not only in the future of the children of this town, our children of the town of New Milford, but it's also an investment in the home values of this town, because it will draw people to this town based on the school system. But if we keep uninvesting in our school system, it will deter people from coming to this town. And if we do not approve this budget, we're going to lose our superintendent. And if we go through another series of superintendent after superintendent after superintendent, no one is going to want to send their kids to be educated in this town.
Well, I think what's great, and we'll talk about this coming Thursday, is the property revow. It's got a good point and a bad point. Good point that Ari just said is do people want to live in New Milford? Oh, absolutely. How do you know? Your property values went way up. And how do they go way up? Because of comparable sales. What are comparable sales? That's people buying houses. So when they go to revalue your house, they look at the comparable sales. And they're way, way, way up. Because they want to live in this great town. And as far as the ratios, Ari, I was just talking about that in 2018, using that as just a delta point, why I picked it out of the air and asked, at that particular point in time, the state of Connecticut said to the town of New Milford, we're going to give you 11% of what your gross cost is for a budget. That was a delta point we used. If you look at it now, as Joe had said, we're way under that. If they just kept up with exactly how everything goes, that's millions of extra dollars that could be pumped into the town and the district. And I'm just saying my own self, as a resident of New Milford, I would hope that the state, instead of giving away stuff that they were just giving away, all sorts of other stuff, that just as everybody at this table had just said, maybe they should give more concentration of those extra fundings that they had, which was billions upon billions of extra dollars, that they could have taken that and just fully funded the ECS. And that's just not coming from New Milford, that's coming from lots of other towns.
That's right.
And I'm just saying, it could just take all of us, right, Jenny? It could take all of us a minute or two, write to our legislators, write to the governor, and the more people that do that, hopefully they'll understand that, and that'd be some extra money that could come into the towns and then into the district.
Are you talking about the $500 of state surplus funding that was set aside for things like SNAP benefits and homeless services and healthcare and those kinds of things? I mean, is that what you're referring to? That saying that should have gone to fully fund the...
No, what I'm saying, Ari, is they had funding that, I'll give you an example. They provided free passes to museums. So I'm saying maybe some of those free funding to a museum, maybe that could have went towards higher education. Maybe that could have went, maybe that could have went towards paying down some student debt, as our younger people are going to be enslaved by this debt. So I'm just thinking the way that they put it that way.
No dispute that.
Joe?
Ari's right. a well-funded school system does increase home prices. People want to move to Milford. But a mill rate through the roof also makes people not want to move to New Milford. To illustrate Brian's point, it's the taxpayers' money to do that to be here.
Yeah, I think it's a,
Any other questions for Dr.
Mayor, I have a
Parlato, for
question.
Chairwoman Sarowitz? Rolando?
back on the floor. With some surrounding towns having a different problem that we have, overcrowded schools, for example, do you believe that we have an issue where kids that aren't from New Milford are coming to New Milford schools? And if yes, is there any way to, let's say, investigate a little more to not have that go on in New Milford?
So another thing that we'll add to the packet that we'll send out is we have a full process for making sure that the people who register for school here actually live here. Actually, last year we were lucky to get the funding for half a position that half of her whole job is just doing residency investigations, looking at the property transfers in the paper, seeing if people are moving from one place to another, and if they're staying here. Sometimes people say, hey, I think so-and-so doesn't live here. That allows us to launch an investigation into residency. As we go forward, and this year's a good example, everyone who was entering grade 6 had to prove residency again, even if they started in kindergarten. Yeah. So we're gonna expand that to every time a student switches schools. So if you go from 2nd to 3rd, you're gonna have to prove residency again. If you go from 8 to 9, you're gonna have to prove residency again. So we have a whole process for that. And a half of a person's job is just that.
Any other questions? All right, seeing as there are none others, thank you, Dr. Parlato, thank you, Chairwoman Sarah.
Thanks, everybody.
Anthony, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
A motion, Board of Finance to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
And a motion for the town council
We
to,
learned what you're gonna say. We're picking up on it.
till Thursday,
Thursday.
next Thursday, when we do
Thursday.
the budget deliberations.
Right.
Here, next Thursday, yep.
Recessing or adjourning?
Recessing.
Council
All those in
recess.
favor?
Aye.
Oppose, any abstentions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.